Well, Bully Awareness Week has drawn to a close, but according to Bullying Canada, more than 64% of Canadian kids report being harassed at school. It's a story that's become prevalent after an Ontario teenager was bullied to death last month. I'm now joined by Tania DaSilva. She is a youth and family therapist. She joins me in Toronto. Tania, appreciate your time here on CTV News Channel.
Thanks for having me.
So many heartbreaking stories of the situation with young kids being bullied, experiencing bullying. Based on your expertise, what is the state of the situation in Canadian schools? And I'm adding into that sort of the aspect of social media and cyberbullying.
Well, and I was going to touch on that. I feel like bullying is something that's been around for years, the physical bullying, the verbal bullying, the social bullying. But now with cyberbullying and the internet, it's become really difficult for us to keep up with it because every other day there is a new social media account. There's some new technology that kids are kind of ahead of the game with. And a lot of the times they are using that when they are targeting kids at school to target them outside of school as well. So it's definitely changing.
Would you say it's in some cases become more violent?
I don't know if it's become more violent. I think it's become more aggressive for sure. We even hear it with our kids when they come in and they're talking to us about their situations where before you used to be able to turn it off. You were at home, you were in your safe place. Now they can keep messaging you. They can repost videos of you. Even if you're not with them, you're watching what they're posting. And sometimes there's that passive aggressive, message in the captions or in the photos. It's really showing you that you're not included or not involved in something. So I think it's just become a lot more aggressive with you're not really able to turn it off the same way that you once were.
What kinds of things are you hearing from these kids? What's going through their minds of, having to go through this and then trying to understand and deal with it?
I think for them, there is now this added piece of fear where they're worried about someone recording them or someone screenshotting a private conversation and that being kind of shown to everyone else around them. So it's a new layer for kids where before, the interactions you were having with people, you weren't as overly concerned about other people being a part of them. But now with people secretly recording things or even visibly recording things, there's that added fear. The screenshots are a big one too, where kids have told us multiple times they don't feel comfortable having open conversations because they're worried about who else is going to see this or what are people going to do with this. So, yeah, we're definitely hearing that a lot.
What are you then telling these kids, in terms of prevention, protecting themselves?
Well, I think that kind of goes into just a general footprint, like our online footprint. We talk about just being aware of, what they're doing and who they're with and if phones are out and, again, what they're saying. Sometimes you wish that it doesn't have to come to this, but we talk to them about just being conscious of if this is something that you are worried about someone else sharing, then maybe there's something else to consider. Maybe it's that relationship and that person, there should be some kind of trust if you guys are friends. And if there's not, then we kind of explore that in a different way. But just that general awareness around pay attention to what you're putting out there and would you be okay with if it was shared, right?
And then it also comes back to, of course, what's happening in the schools. Are the schools doing enough? Do they have enough support? So I'd like for you to comment on your thoughts on that, but also talk about parents and what can parents do, what kinds of signs they need to look for, not just for someone who may be a victim of bullying, but perhaps someone who might be the bully themselves.
Well, and I mean, we work with schools at our clinic, we work with parents, and we actually do work with kids that are bullied as well as kids that are doing the bullying. So we kind of see it all. In terms of for parents, we always tell parents, you want to advocate for your child. So you want to start tracking and keeping copies of maybe, the exchanges or the videos or the photos that are being put out there. And you want to create a connection with someone at that school, whether it's the social worker or the teacher or the principal, and just make sure that they're aware of it from the beginning. Because what happens a lot is families are like, oh, maybe it's going to get better, or I don't want to make a big deal out of it or make it worse. And then by the time that they do contact the school, it's already become a really big thing. But the school's only hearing it for the first time. So there's kind of now that disconnect versus it's been happening for a while, but we didn't know about it. So we always really push to advocate for your child, talk to the school about it, have those conversations early on so that we're on top of it. We always also advocate in a way that schools, there's a lot going on in schools, and they're trying to keep up with it as much as they can, especially with everything changing with social media and just the digital era. But getting involved with a therapist, at least that way, there's someone that can work with you as a family so that you can work through it together. Your child's being given those skills, to be assertive, to work on empathy, right? Like those social and emotional skills that they do typically need.
Right.
And then we're also the link, right? So a lot of the time we work with the schools directly to kind of target this before it becomes a bigger issue.
And certainly create that relationship of trust that kids certainly need. Tania DaSilva, child, youth, and family therapist. Such an important conversation. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about it today.
Thanks so much for having me.